I'm a bit sad here today because I just spent the morning here driving to a guy looking at his vehicle that I was really inclined to buy, but unfortunately it didn't work out. And to make you understand what I wanted to buy and so on, I have to go back a little bit. So I have come to a decision here in the background, and I've been alluding a little bit to this. I need to build my ultimate family hauler, tow vehicle, multi-purpose, do everything kind of vehicle. And that vehicle doesn't really exist. And I want something that is fairly modern, but not too modern. I want something that gets as good gas mileage as possible and can hold 5 people, tow my trailer, and do all of these things. And there's not really a perfect vehicle for that. Some vehicles come close, but not really. So I've been debating here for myself what that should be. And I'm just gonna cut the chase here a little bit. And what I have decided that I wanted to build, and when I say this, you're gonna totally not understand what my problem is, but I'm gonna explain it for you. So if I could just pick whatever I want from a board of things that I want. So that would be a C20 3/4 ton Suburban frame, preferably as early as possible, 73, 75, around that model year. Then I want a 2007 to 2014 Suburban body, the GMT 900 platform. Then I want to take that body, put on the square body frame, and in that I would like to put in a diesel engine. I'm not really sure yet. I'm thinking about some Mercedes OM 603, 606 engine. Might be a Cummins, but I don't really think I need it. But that would be somewhat of my dream vehicle. And I understand that probably from your point of view, this makes no sense at all. But here in Sweden, it makes a lot of sense. So I'm gonna explain that for you. The thing is, the newer a vehicle is, the more hard it is to do engine swaps and so on. And in 1994, I'm not sure if this is a EU thing or within the world or whatever, but at least in Sweden, I can't really explain the word, but they are completely approved or whatever, approved as complete, maybe we can call it that. So it's very hard to go outside of the framework of that vehicle. It's supposed to have that engine, that transmission, that rear axle, and so on. And if you want to do any changes, it's really hard to get that registered, especially a diesel swap or going from gas to diesel or diesel to gas because of the emissions and stuff like that. So obviously I would like to have a 2007 to 2014 Suburban and just put in a small diesel engine. But it will be very hard to get that registered here in Sweden because you have to register it as is, or you won't pass the control inspection, which in that case you have to do every year. So that's why I need to build on an older frame. And as I said, I want something that is fairly modern, that my wife might want to drive. I like things that come with a newer vehicle. Obviously, we could build on a 73 Suburban body, but as I said, there's happened quite a lot of things between 73 and 07. So there's been a bunch of improvements. So I would like to have all of those assets that the 2007 has. So that's why I want to take the body onto that frame, because then I can take that diesel engine, put in that build and get it registered, because it's old enough to be exempt. At least it's older than 94, but the older you get, the less of a problem it is. So with that said, that's the vehicle in my dreams I would like to have to use. And there are some other things to take into consideration. If the vehicle is older than 30 years, it's tax exempt, so you don't have any yearly tax. They are cheaper to insure. You only have to inspect them once every other year instead of once every year. And there was something else I wanted to point out here that I couldn't really remember. I had it on my tongue a moment ago. Maybe it will come back to me. But also, as of right now, they are debating removing these. But if the vehicle is older than 50 years, it is completely exempt from inspection. You only have to inspect it once, and then you don't have to inspect it anymore. As I said, they're about to remove those rules, or they're talking about it, so that might not be a thing. But if you got something that is 75 or older, that would also be a big positive thing, because we don't have to inspect it. So yeah, there's a bunch of stupid rules here that create this sort of need for this vehicle. So I need to build this vehicle. That is what I have come up with. With that, I am going to try and sell the R1500 C10 Suburban I have, the 89, to build on something else. Also, I want a C20 because I want to have high weight class. It's easier to get it registered with a higher towing capacity and a bunch of other stuff. So that's why I want a C20 instead of C10. Also, it feels bad to yank that thing to build what I want when I can find a C20 Suburban without too much issue. I have one on the line, so we'll see. But I have made a bunch of ads and also getting back to where we started the video, I've made a bunch of ads. I want a C20 Suburban donor. I want this GMT 900 2007 to 2014 Suburban, preferably some junk vehicle that missing engine, missing transmission, maybe has some crash damage or whatever, but it would be best to buy a complete vehicle. And they are fairly common here in Sweden, but as you might imagine, they're not as common as in the US, of course, and they are still quite pricey. If you want one that works, that you can just jump in and drive, they're about 10 grand at the moment. And obviously there are more expensive ones, but the cheaper ones are around 10 grand-ish. Some over, I've seen some under. I saw one for sale with a broken transmission for 6 grand. But it's still quite a lot of money to spend to just remove the body, because there's not much left to sell to bring back some money. So it's quite a pricey body we have to buy. I could import one from the US, but there's going to be so much shipping and whatnot, so I don't think I'm going to save much money there. So yeah, now I remember what I wanted to say before. The thing is, why we need to build on the 74 or a C20 or square body frame instead of the Suburban frame or with the bodies and everything. The thing is, here in Sweden, we don't really look at a vehicle in the same way as you do over in the US, because by our rules, the frame is the vehicle. The body is just parts. Even though the VIN is riveted to the body is just a shell. The frame is what is the vehicle, the title, the paperwork, whatnot. So that's why we need the square body frame, because that is basically the vehicle we are body swapping onto. So that's what I wanted to explain with that. So anyway, the thing was, I made a bunch of ads, and there was a guy reached out to me, and he had a 2008 Suburban 1500, nothing special, and he wanted $7,500 for that. So it wasn't super cheap, but it was below average. So I thought, first I didn't really think much of it, but then I thought, because it was all ready to go, no problems. It has some issues with the hitch, because as I said, we have a bunch of stupid rules here. So every car is registered individually, so they can have a variety of different hitch towing ratings. So this one, you could basically tow a small single axle trailer. You had a towing capacity of 750 kilos, which is ridiculous, but that's how it is here in Sweden. The most we can have on a 50 millimeter ball hitch is 3.5 tons, which I needed. So this vehicle was running and driving, and the only problem with it was that it didn't have any good towing capacity. So when I was thinking about this back and forth, I come up with an idea. So I thought to myself, if I buy this for 7,500, I make a registration to get up the towing capacity, then I could use this for the foreseeable future. And when eventually it breaks, then I could start building on this dream vehicle of mine. So that was my plan, and I was all in on this. I couldn't sleep last night. In my head, I had already bought it. I had this plan how I was gonna buy it, spend 2 days in the garage, change some fluids, give it some love, and then we could drive it all through winter, no problem, and we can just work on all of our stuff and don't feel stressed about having a good driver. So yeah, I was really tempted on this. But when I got there, it was a bit rusty, but I was expecting that. It was cheaper than most of the vehicles out there. So that wasn't really a big thing. But then it started it, and it was really what it's called. The valves were ticking, or the valve lifters were ticking a lot. Very common on the LS-based platform. So it probably need a set of lifters and a engine, the delete for the 4-cylinder mode. But it could be done. I felt, yeah, okay, we can do this, we can drive it, we can improve it. Then I started to drive it, and it was so gutless. I was pushing the pedal more and more, and nothing happened. And then all of a sudden, it was so down to the floor that it kicked the transmission down in gear, and it was just revving red line. So the transmission was slipping, something's wrong, and I could hear some weird noises when it revved up, when the transmission slipped. So the engine needed some work, the transmission needed some work. It was overall pretty bad shape, and he was very firm on his price. He didn't want to do anything. I offered him $5,000. I knew that he wasn't going to take that, but I tried. But he was very. Maybe I could get him down to $7,000, but the plan really fell through. If I had to do a transmission rebuild, that's at least $2,500, something like that. Another grand into the engine with lifters and whatnot. Maybe have a worn down cam. So $3,500 just in parts, and with that we go up to the $10,000 and above, where I can just buy one that already works. I don't have $10,000, so I can't do that. I was stretching myself really thin to be able to buy that for $7,500. So that's not really an option right now. And also I don't want to buy a vehicle for $10,000 that I plan on junking. So as you can see, it wasn't really worth my time. The thing was, I was so on this idea. I had already planned out. In my head, I was already 5 months in advance. Spring is coming. This thing is still working, and I wouldn't have spent so much time on it. But it just turned out to be another project in the pile, and he didn't want to go down as low as I needed to go. So yeah, unfortunately, that's where it ended. So a very long explanation, but I mean, there are a few of you that actually watch my channel and are interested in my ideas and my thoughts and what goes around being here in Sweden. So I thought I might explain that in more detail, and I hope you appreciate that. I'm really trying here with my videos, and as I say all too often, man, I feel like I'm treading water here. I'm not getting anywhere, but I'm really appreciative of those 100 of you that actually watch my videos. So really big thanks for that. But now that's out of the way. We'll see what happens. Can we find another donor or whatnot? That's in the future. But for now, we are going to do some more work here, and it's already 1 o'clock, so we're not going to be able to do much here today. I've done a bunch of other errands, and one of them was that I bought some more of this because when it dried, it set a bit, and I didn't think it looked as good as I wanted it to. So I bought another full can of this, so we're going to put on another coat on that. And other than that, I want to keep on working on the turbo small block, and I want to put on the intake manifold and so on. So I'm going to spray that real quick, and then we can get to the V8. And here we have another coat on the inner fender, and now it looks a lot better. It's even structure over everything. Hopefully it doesn't sink overnight and become more flat? I guess we'll find that out, but however it turns out, that's what it's gonna do. So tomorrow we can bolt that in the car. We wouldn't have time for it here today anyway. And we still haven't changed the blower motor, which was the whole thing what we started this for. But hopefully by tomorrow we can have the Chevelle done, at least that part. But the last time we have here today, I want to spend on the small block here. And I started looking at the oil feed for this turbo kit, and I got this with all of this other stuff. And it has this super long oil line, and it has this, I think it's called, I'm guessing it's called a banjo fitting in English also. It's at least what it's called here in Sweden. But I mean, it's pretty obvious that this, or I would say it's obvious that this has been here, or might have, if they have had an oil adapter here with an oil outlet, it could have been bolted to that. I don't know. But either way, I got it with this bolt, and you can thread it in a bit, but then it gets stuck. So I have looked, and it's not the same threads as this plug I removed from the block. So unfortunately, we can't bolt this onto there with that. Also, it feels like it's a bit cramped in space. I'm thinking more and more if they had some sort of oil filter adapter where this could bolt onto like that. But we have some other options, because we could take the oil pressure from here, and this thing is steel, so I could weld my own T adapter, so it could thread into here and it could accept both an oil pressure sender and this oil feed for the turbo. So we have to look a little bit on that, but first off we need to bolt on this manifold, and this is probably not the manifold we'll be going with, but it's the only one I have at the moment. This is a dual plane manifold, and from my understanding, just by looking on the internet, you're supposed to have a single plane manifold when you're going turbo because of how the carb is reacting or whatever. But this is what we have. So I have some used intake gaskets, so I'm gonna slap this on with them. That's gonna do just fine for this test, and then maybe we can start looking more on getting this thing started. Intake is in place with the used gaskets, and as you can see, they look like brand new. So they're not old, but also these gaskets have nothing to do with age. They pressure or they squeeze, but it's gonna work for what we're doing right now. And as I said, we'll probably end up changing the intake manifold in the soon future. I put on the valve covers, and when I did that, I was thinking that I was gonna put cylinder number 1 on the ignition stroke so that we could put in the distributor. But then I remembered that this is not an engine cart, this is one of these wheel dollies, so this is sitting on the damper. So obviously I can't turn the engine over, which means that I can't put in the distributor, which means that I can't start this today, which I had a plan of doing. So unfortunately that's not gonna happen. And it wouldn't have been any special, because I still wouldn't have had time to fix the oil system and whatnot. But I'm going to go ahead and modify this into something like that. We build some legs, and this probably won't be my startup cart, but we can have engines in it. And I could buy one of these for like 70 bucks or something here in Sweden, or I can rebuild this that I already have. I have 8 wheel dollies because I got 4 of them with the car, and I'm never gonna use all of them at once, so might as well build them. But the thing is that for welding, I'm out of time. There is within an hour of time left before we have to go and pick up the kids. So that's not gonna happen. So unfortunately, there's no start happening here today. But we can look at some other things. And what I would like to fix is the oil feed for the turbo. And I could probably try and find one of these with the correct threads to work here. But it's really, really tight down here. And I'm not sure this is gonna be the best solution. I don't have one of these adapters with a bunch of fittings on it. So I would like to see if I could build something from this port that would go up to a T with the oil sender and the pressure to the turbo. Obviously it has to be in steel, the fittings, so that I can work with them. So I'm gonna go through my junk pile and see what parts I have to work with and see if there's something we can build, or parts for it at least, and yeah, see what I can find. So I've gone through my scrap pile and I have a bit of a solution. It's not perfect, but this junction here with all of those fittings I had. This is the fitting from the turbo kit that fits with this thing, and obviously an oil pressure sender here. And this could work, but it doesn't really fit with the HEI. We could do some workaround. I can't really fit it that way. I could obviously put it here, but then we run into the same problem with the sender instead, hitting everything. So we could solve it with this somehow. And I mean, I could buy fittings left and right, but that costs a lot of money, and it's hard. Obviously, I live in Sweden. Things are metric. It's every time it's something that is imperial threads or pipe threads or whatever, it becomes a bit of a problem, as you might imagine. And I can't just go into Summit Racing and buy. I'm assuming there is a T-junction, exactly what I need for the oil pressure sender, but obviously I can't really get it that quick. But we could fix it somehow. But something I'm thinking of more and more is this piece, and obviously this is the piece with this kit. That fitting went here, and I mean, I can take this and I can put it on here, and I have gotten some threads here, and you can see I can thread it pretty long. So the threads are very, very similar, and they're a bit more coarse or whatever on the block and a bit finer on this bolt, but as you can see, it's very, very close here, but about 1/8 of an inch or something. And we don't need much. And obviously I can't push this in because it's too tight, but we could grind a little bit in the block, little bit on this fitting. And I think that I can find a tap with these threads. And if I run that through here once or twice, I think that we will be able to get this bolt in place with this fitting here, so that we could route the oil line here at the block and up to the turbo. And I think that would be the easiest solution, cheapest. We have everything. Oil pressure can go exactly how it wants to, stock, and everything should work. So I think I'm gonna work towards that. And I mean, otherwise we can buy some fittings or whatnot. But I think that we could solve it with that solution. But unfortunately, we are out of time here today, and obviously I haven't done as much as I would hope to have done, but we spent a lot of time with doing errands and also looking at that Suburban, and it could have been the perfect solution for me right now, just to have something I could drive and just put every other car to the side, so nothing else has to work. But unfortunately, it wasn't that good today. But that's life sometimes. But it could have been perfect. But yeah, that's where we're at. So unfortunately, I have to leave you there. But I really, really think that we should have this engine started by tomorrow, and we can hear some turbo noises. So that's what I'm going to strive for. So I hope to see you back tomorrow for that.